All right, then I'm going to go ahead and hit that. So we've got the recording started. Thank you, Steve. Good call out. All right, so a couple of quick reminders and business items. As we just covered, this meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be posted to our website after the meeting. The link to the advance packet was sent out in an email by Steve on last Friday. Please reach out. Probably at this point, the most efficient point would be to reach out to Steve direct via email if you're having trouble locating that link. We will not bring most of the items up on the screen, and we're going to assume that you can access them. We will use the page numbers to refer to where they fall in the packet for reference to kind of keep things moving along. We do have about a half a dozen action items and a few informational items. It does look like we'll have enough information this morning to run not quite 2 hours, so we are going to plan for a 10-minute recess right at the halfway mark, hopefully right around 10:30. And as always, we ask that you mute your microphones when it's not in use, when you're not speaking. When you are speaking, we ask that you introduce yourself when giving a motion or second or asking questions. So with that very brief rundown, I'd like to ask if there is anyone logged into the call who is not a member for the purpose of providing comment on an item that's not listed on the agenda. All right, then hearing none, we're going to move forward to item C, and that's the approval of the November 20th 2020 MPO meeting minutes. They are included on pages 3 to 9 of the advanced packet, and I'd ask if there are any corrections or changes required to the minutes that they be brought forward at this time. All right, hearing none, is there a motion for the approval of the minutes as presented?
Lincoln Kaufman, I'll make that motion.
Lincoln, thank you for the motion. Is there a second?
This is
Steve
Justin.
Phillips, I'll second.
Steve, you came through a little bit more clearly, so we'll give you the second on that. Any further questions or any discussion? Hearing none, then all those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please signify by saying aye.
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 If there are any opposed, please signify by saying nay at this time. And are there any abstentions? All right, then thank you. The minutes are accepted as presented. Moving along, that brings us up to the administrative modifications and amendments. These are just the minor adjustments to the TIP, changes to the projects included in the TIP that have been made since the November meeting. Again, because we're in a virtual meeting, we try and give you just a real quick overview of this, a very brief rundown. So starting on page 11 of the packet with the administrative actions for District 2, we have 3 projects with increased cost estimates. They include the 322 Bridge Preservation Project over Doe Run in Juniata County, the 477 or Mill Street Bridge over Fishing Creek in Loganton and Clinton County, and the 1008 Big Plum Road over Plum Run Bridge, also in Clinton County. We're pulling the funding from some projects where it isn't quite needed, or isn't needed quite yet. And those include the 3002 resurfacing, the Peel Avenue Bridge, and the 4001 Bridge. So with that brief overview, are there any questions on these changes for Vicki Rusnak? All right, hearing none, then do we have a motion to accept the administrative actions as presented for District 2?
Jim, Brad Kerstetter, I'll make that motion.
Brad, thanks for the motion. Is there a second?
Jack Kittle, I'll second the motion.
Great, Jack, thank you. Any questions or further discussion? Then hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the administrative actions as presented, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, signify by saying nay at this time. And are there any abstentions? All right, hearing none, then the administrative actions for District 2 are accepted as they are presented. The administrative actions for District 3 start on page 12. There are 14 separate actions. To break those down and try and summarize, it looks like we have 2 changes, adding additional phases for the SR 54 Safety Improvement Project, and also lining that up for 2022 LET. We're adding design phases for 2 projects, the Sunbury Road 4001 in Riverside and the Southern RAR project. There is a no-cost change for the funding type on the bundle that involves several structures spread across the region. It's and what we're doing with that is changing to a more restrictive funding flavor in this project where the bridges qualify, so we can stretch the more flexible funding a little bit further on other projects. There is another set of 5 projects that have cost increases. That includes the SR 339 project in Columbia County, the Old Reading Road Bridge in Northumberland County, the Columbia County Box Beam Bundle Bridge that project that includes 4 bridge rehabs, and the Draketown Road over Stony Creek project in Columbia. We are moving the project year for the retroactive reimbursement on the T426 bridge in Northumberland County. That's an administrative change so that the pavement is available closer to when the project is done. And then finally on page 14 and 15, we are adding federal flood and statewide match for the federal flood dollars for 5 bridge repairs in Columbia County. And that's coming from outside the TIP, new funding coming in. So I realize that's a lot of separate projects. Are there any questions about particular projects from that list for John Rank? All right, then hearing none, do we have a motion to accept those changes as presented?
Greg Molter, I move to approve.
Eric
Greg?
Staley, I second.
Outstanding. Greg, thank you for the motion. Eric for the second. Are there any further questions, any further discussion? Then hearing none, all in favor of accepting them as presented, please signify by saying aye.
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 If there are any opposed, please signify at this time by saying nay. All right, and any abstentions? Then they are accepted as presented. Thank you. That, I guess one further note under that item, page 16 shows the list of projects approved pending available funding. There are no changes on that list from November. If there are no further questions about the TIP actions and the changes made since the November meeting, I'd like to pass it over now to John Rank for an update on the CSVT project.
Thanks, Jim. Can you hear me?
Coming through loud and clear.
Very good. All right, starting with the northern section, the bridge is done. It was completed at the end of the year. There may be a few small minor details to finish up when all the paving and is done and we start doing markers and signs, but for the basically large overall amount of physical work, it is completed. What is left is still some paving on the paving contract. We need to pave from basically over here, Ridge Road to the bridge, and then from the bridge to the SR 15 interchange. We're going to do the major part of these paving operations in 2021 and then finalize everything up in 2022 with the wearing course and then markings and some tie-ins, especially with where Route 405 is. And then we anticipate opening it up, the northern section completely up in 2022. Moving on to the southern section, I don't know if I have relayed this yet to the MPO. I think maybe Jim and a few other people, if you've been on some other calls with the CSVT development, the southern section will now be 3 major contracts. The first one will be earthwork, the second one will be the structures, and the third one will be the paving. The one caveat to this is the 61 connector work will be all intertwined in those. So we will not be doing a separate 61 connector project. It will be all incorporated into the whole southern project itself. So there won't be a separate project for that. And we are now in final design for the earthwork. And right now we're finalizing the plans for that. And it's roughly about 5 million cubic yards of earthwork that's going to be required for the project. Last month, we met with local officials and emergency responders to provide updates on our planned construction access points and anticipate impacts to traffic on existing roadways during construction. At that time, no major concerns were identified during the meeting, and we are currently considering how to best share that info with the general public. We're probably going to put out a newsletter sometime this spring to give them a better idea what to expect during construction. And then we'll also be relaying more details with detours that will be required on local roads during different stages of construction. For right-of-way, we recently completed our final check for right-of-way acquisition plan that defines the exact areas of land and types of easements needed to accommodate the various features of the project over the bulk of its footprint. We're currently finalizing the plan and will soon focus on working through the appraisal and negotiation process with affected property owners. Moving on to utilities, we continue to regularly coordinate with utility companies on arrangements for relocating their affected facilities, either prior to or in conjunction with the highway construction. In particular, late last year, UGI completed their relocation of approximately 4,800 feet of their gas transmission pipeline to accommodate the proposed CSVT design in the area of the PA 61 connector. And finally, permitting, we're finalizing our stream hydraulic studies and our impact accounting, and we anticipate submitting our associated application for waterway and wetland permits to the environmental agencies next month. And we're also finalizing the erosion control and stormwater management details needed to complete our separate application for the NPDES permit, which we anticipate submitting to DEP and Snyder CCD in March. With all that being said, we still plan on letting the earthwork contract in the fall, probably getting into winter of 2021, with the first contract be started construction in the 2022 construction season. Having said all that, I will take any questions and I'll try to answer anything I can, or pass on anything that I can't.
Jonathan, I've got a question. How many properties are there yet to acquire? Do you know offhand?
No, not offhand. I can follow up with that. I don't think there is many from where we are moving, but I'm not quite sure.
Okay, I was just curious. Thanks.
No problem.
All right, if there are no other questions for John, we'll move on to the UPWP update. The staff report for this runs from pages 18 to 20. So that's our highlight listing of what we've been up to since the November MPO meeting. One of the things we wanted to call out was that there was a law passed late last year classifying personal delivery devices as pedestrians and directing PennDOT to develop a policy for administering their use on sidewalks and along roads and crossings and other areas typically occupied by pedestrians. So if you haven't heard about this before, there is a flyer on page 30 that explains what a PDD is. And the draft policy that PennDOT's pulled together for their administration starts on page 35. PennDOT is currently accepting comments on that policy. The deadline for submitting those is, I believe, midnight tonight. If you go out and look on our website, you can find the same information. There's also a link to a recording of the webinar that PennDOT held on this issue on Wednesday. They go into a little bit more detail of what these things are, how they're going to operate. I guess all I'd call out here is that the passage of this law and the development of the guidelines has moved very fast statewide. There have been some issues noted. Other planning partners and particularly bicycle and pedestrian advocates have some concerns about these things operating in sidewalks and other spaces shared by pedestrians. I guess just to add a little bit of common sense to this, I think it's going to be a while before we see these devices rolled out in most of our region. Like most new technology, this is going to follow the profit model. It's going to be rolled out first in the more urban areas where they really see a benefit to bringing this into the delivery structure. And I guess if it hasn't been made clear in the conversation yet, what they're really talking about here is a small remote operated device that an operation like FedEx or UPS can use for the last mile delivery of packages. It's a little crate on wheels that can roll up the sidewalk, roll up almost to your house. They can send you a code. You can go out and open this up instead of them sending a package out in a truck. So again, realizing that it's probably going to be a while before this rolls out into the more rural areas, we wanted to make sure that we were sharing this information with you, that you knew where to find the guidelines, that you had the opportunity to comment if this is something that you're hearing a lot about from your stakeholders. Otherwise, we're going to wait and see how this develops. As staff, we did provide a preliminary set of comments when they first rolled out the opportunity to do so in December. Some of the changes that we recommended on things like marking and just the signaling of these devices and some of the general operation seems to be addressed or was already going to be addressed in the guidelines as they've gone through. I think, you know, from just a gut feel, I think they're doing the best they can with this with the time that they have. So we want to get that information out in front of you, especially since the comment window closes today. And as I said, you can find further information on that on our website. Moving along, PennDOT has shared the applications for the multimodal fund. Staff has pulled together preliminary comments. They're included a few pages after the staff report in this section of the advanced packet. And our action item there that we're asking is if you have input in those comments, if there's something you feel that we don't have quite right or something we're not capturing, I would ask that you get that input to Mr. Herman no later than January 28th, so we have an opportunity to finalize these comments and get them into the system. There were 9 projects submitted from our region. Some of these are projects we've seen coming through the process and being worked on for a while. A number of bridge projects, a safety improvement project over in Kelly Township. There's nothing in this that I would not support going forward. So largely that's what we're trying to note in our comments, the advantages of the projects, the efforts they've gone through to coordinate, and we're trying to give them the best chance they can of being funded. I also wanted to do just a quick note about the retroactive reimbursement meetings. We might have mentioned this at the November meeting. Vicki Rusnak over in District 2 recommended that we sit down with each of the county planners and talk about what they have coming up for the retroactive program. Thank you to Mark and Brad and Katie. We were able to schedule those meetings all in a couple of days leading up to Christmas, and we're going to circulate the notes coming out of those back out to you to make sure that we heard everything correctly shortly. I think that's all the highlights I have on the staff report. Steve, I'd like to hand it over to you to talk about the Transportation Alternative Set-Aside update.
Sure, thanks, Jim. Kind of our normal reporting here, we do status updates on the Transportation Alternatives projects. Begins on page 24 there of your packet. Well, actually page 23, sorry. And at the bottom, there was a slight change we had seen for some of the milestones on the Bull Run Greenway. The let date was moved a little bit there to April of 2021, and notice to proceed for June being the estimate. So the funds have been obligated, and the project, or not quite obligated when we had checked on the system as far as the markers there. But John, Vicki, as I go through this, if you have any updates, feel free to share those with the members. Next page 24. We'll note that at the bottom there, Brown Township Streetscape in Mifflin County. We had seen in MPMS PennDOT's online management system that was targeted for a letting on January 14th. So when we had checked the system, we didn't see updates for that. But if John and Vicki, if you have updates on those two projects in particular that were nearing their advertisements and let dates, please feel free to share those now, or any other updates you want to share on the existing projects.
Hey, Steve. In regards to the Bull Run Greenway, basically what we're waiting on still is a NEPA clearance. I think we're anticipating that in the beginning or mid of February here. Once that happens, I can submit the 4232 to get the funding for it, and then we can proceed to letting.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sean.
John, this is Dean. The Brown Township Streetscape, that was bid on 1/14/21. It has not yet been awarded. Just wanted to let you know that.
Okay, thanks, Dean. Thanks for the update there on that. And I know there's been several things going on with these projects that are in play, and also letting schedules have been a little bit difficult with the funding crunches from COVID and everything. So thanks for keeping those balls moving forward and those local projects advancing.
Yeah, and I know the East Church Street, I know the pretty much the construction's done. They have the list, at the final they went through and got their punch list, and a lot of those items will be finished up in the spring.
Okay, excellent. Good progress there. Thank you, Dean. Thank you, John, for those updates. Next under this section, I'll just say, I know we've been sharing with the members for some time that we've been part of the work group that is looking to refine the transportation alternative set-aside application system and format, hopefully make that much simpler and easier for the applicants, and then also to manage in terms of the reviews and linking in some of the environmental scoring and other processes that are related to the planning and NEPA system. So that work is ongoing and still being tweaked and refined. And we know we've been sharing that if you had community sponsors that were interested in pursuing a TA project, transportation alternatives, to get them primed up, building momentum and support locally. Anything you can do on the design side or pulling together, match and everything, because we did anticipate a round opening this year, and we've got a little bit more concrete on that. Hearing recently from PennDOT that the target is probably a late spring, early summer solicitation for the statewide TA set-aside program this year. Some of that was enabled by the federal transportation bill being extended through the end of September. So if you are communicating with your municipalities, kind of make them aware of that prospect forthcoming here a little bit later this year, and that hopefully they'll be able to submit an application and either build on past momentum, or if they have newer things they've been working on, independent phases, to get those ready and hopefully competitive for the application process. Since this is a new system, we expect there'll probably be some type of training or webinars for municipalities and other project sponsors, and more than likely for the PennDOT planning partners and the district staff that will be engaged in this process as well. So as more details come together and are shared with us, we'll make sure we feed that out to the group. But that's the main takeaway, is that there should be a solicitation coming late spring, early summer for TA set aside for new applications. And as we get more definitive information on that schedule, actual funding amounts that are in play and available, we can share that with the group. But just as a reminder, there's funds that come in for any area across the state, and then those larger urbanized areas that have 200,000 population or above get their own independent pots that they can award the funding from. So I think that was the main highlights I had on TA set aside, unless there's questions.
All right, if there are no questions for Steve, then that's going to cue us up for Don to give us an update on the long-range transportation plan.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Please, someone, if you would let me know that you can see my screen.
We can see you.
Good, okay. There's some interesting things to run through today with you, and I apologize in advance for a couple things. We've got a couple of the slides in here this morning. There's a lot of words on, and I'm not going to go down through each line there, and you can have a look at them, but it's important, I think, that we wanted to present you some of that in a little bit more lengthy display here. It's going to be a little bit longer presentation than some of them in the past because we have a lot of things going on that we want to share with you today, but hopefully you'll find most all of it very interesting, and we'll leave some time for questions at the end, hopefully. I want to start off with the project schedule here. And we're going to emphasize today what we're doing in a few areas. One of them is that we have been working on a lot of data analysis. We still have work going on with the actual plan document itself, and appreciate comments people have made for feedback on that. We've been trying to work on those sorts of things as well. But we're going to talk more today about data analysis for what we have been calling corridors of concern. I'll get to that. We're changing that a little bit. And we have outreach coming up. That will really have two components to it. One of them is to present the projects that we have done the preliminary analysis on to the public for their comments. We also will be collecting information from them via a survey that's part of the same website. We'll be showing you some of the components of that as well. But the important part is that we've got a couple of rounds of outreach coming up. The first round is set to begin essentially by the end of the month. We want to open up review of the website that will contain all of this to you next week. What is our plan? And we'll be doing some feedback collection, get responses from you about what you see and what you think. And then that will be going live in February. We'll have a second round of outreach in the March to April timeframe period. That will include the final draft plan, but the real meat of things is set to go here in about another week. And you can see where we are on the yellow line in January. Again, a lot of this has been accomplished, but we have much going on, particularly in February and March are the two busiest months before we get to the end of the time frame here. I'd like to start with something that we've touched on briefly before, but we want to go over again to give you a refresher course in the asset management projects versus discretionary projects. This has been one of the main areas we've looked at in the last couple of months. We've decided to split the proposed projects into two parts. And the asset management projects, just to reiterate, are the major projects, the larger projects that particularly are coming out of PennDOT and the asset management process from the district offices. We've had meetings with the two districts in December to get feedback on these. I won't go down every bullet point list here, but you can see the characteristics of these projects. And we've set a threshold of $5 million for what are considered the major asset management projects. So, these are the ones that are very significant. They're multi-year projects. They're the main ones. And right now we have a list of, I think, 38 of them, if I'm remembering right. Oops. Get back to those again. The discretionary projects are the ones that we've really been spending a lot of time in looking at. We've talked about this quite a lot already, but this project list has emerged from different studies and surveys that have been carried out by SEDA-COG and other organizations in the last few years. There are a much wider range of kinds of projects. They include a lot of active transportation projects. There are safety-related projects, intersections, signals, capacity improvements, those sorts of things, transit projects. And these are the ones that really need attention in this time for the LRTP for how best to make them happen. We really need to be focusing on practical ways to see about getting them developed, especially with funding options, and you see some of them listed there. So that's one of the different things this time around. We try to take a little bit different approach on seeing how some of these projects might better be pursued and might better be funded. And really, they're the mainstream of the regional planning process, gathering things on a regional basis from different sources and coordinating with you as the members, as you have done with us, to identify what the priority projects are. Okay, at this point, we have 38 planned projects that are in the asset management project list that's recently been updated again with the input from District 2 and District 3. There's just an example again down below. You've seen a slide like this before. We keep this and have it maintained. But this is going in as input to the GIS-based visualization site for projects that we'll give some examples to you in a little while here. And so that's been updated as well. You've also seen this slide about how we've been approaching the discretionary projects on giving them some, applying some criteria to consider them and what rises to the top of the list. This is not a end all be all, but it's, I think, a way to separate these projects into the ones that look like best for implementation and others maybe that have more concerns about being able to get them done. And there's 5 super categories, as we're calling them, of implementation scoring factors that we've now been through for each one of the projects that I'll detail here coming up. But factors that we've looked at involve complexity of design and construction, what the costs are, what the implementation horizon might be, factors that promote the readiness of a project to happen, and then what the impacts are for each project. So right now we have 74 potential projects on this list. And again, that's been updated, that's been provided in working with our consultant to put in the visualization mapping that I'll give you some examples in a little bit here. And we've also gone through and done the actual ratings on a sheet that, again, I'll give you an example of coming up here. So this is not, this slide is not intended for you to be able to actually see every detail over on the right, but we've developed an Excel-based spreadsheet that has some automated scoring, totaling features built into it. But for each particular project, we detail things like what county it's in, what the project type is, where it's located. You can see in the upper right, there's a couple of location maps that are included for each one of the projects. And then each one of those scoring factors that I went down to 5 super categories with their subcategories is where the scores get compiled. And I'll give you a couple more details on that on the next slide. So there's one sheet for every project of the 78 discretionary projects. It's interactive. And again, just to emphasize, it's another way to compare projects. It's not saying that the project rated #1 absolutely has to be done first, but it's a good way to get a head start on looking at those. So with those projects, here's a zoom in on a top and the bottom portion of things. You can see a little bit more detail in there for what kind of information has been included. Has project costs and the horizon and so on. And then on the bottom, right at the very bottom on the right, the red square shows you what the total score is. If every box was checked as being a perfect project, it would be 25 points. There certainly aren't any of those, but every project will have a score. I've also circled the item there called corridors of concern, which is an area of emphasis for the LRTP that I'll talk more about in a minute or two. So that's one of the examples of something that might get checked if it belongs and falls on an important corridor. So after we finished the work on putting this together for each project, we summarized the data by each one of those factors. And I won't show you every one of the charts here, but this may give you some thoughts for consideration or what the result is of the kinds of projects that are on the discretionary projects list. So if you look at the chart on the left, that's the project locations by county. We think it's a pretty good spread across things. There's a couple of projects that apply pretty much across the MPO. There are some that are in multiple counties, but that's the general distribution of things. The chart on the right shows the different project types. Probably the one thing that I'll point out here is that there are a lot of active transportation projects, in part because there's been a lot of work done by local groups in the last few years in places like Danville and Bloomsburg. We have the MSATC that's been involved at promoting active transportation projects, and I think that's reflected in the discretionary project list that we've put together. But you see also there's quite a lot of projects that involve intersections and safety improvements or corridors related to congestion management and asset management. Local bridges are on the list too. The last one I'll show, I think, is maybe the most interesting one, project impacts. If this project comes to fruition, you know, what are the main benefits for doing that particular project? And safety has risen to the top of the list here in evaluating these projects. Second on the list is located on corridors of opportunity, as we're calling them now, instead of corridors of concern. Put a little bit more positive emphasis on being able to develop projects. Reducing traffic congestion comes in third on the list. But again, there's a good spread, I think, for benefits and impacts for these particular projects. You'll see this information again. It will be included in the LRTP document as we go forward, maybe in other presentations as well with a bit more detail. But we thought it was important to try to do a little bit of analysis and summarize the data for the discretionary projects and give a good idea of different kind of project spread, different types of projects across the spectrum. I'll just ask at this point whether anyone has any comments or questions about things, or I can back up and show the other chart as well. Okay, well, I'll move forward. Here's a list of the most significant discretionary projects as we think right now. These are not the ones necessarily that are at the top of the list and how they were rated, but we think that there are a lot of major things that pop up that are worth mentioning. I won't talk about each one of them, but I think you can see there's a wide mix of different kinds of things, ranging from freight to new bridges to walkability projects, interchanges, signal improvements, and so on. So we just thought we would provide a list of this to give you the representative types of things that we think are pretty significant, that have a possibility of happening. I wanted to go on and talk a little bit about data. And we've been trying to do a different approach this time compared to the last couple of LRTPs. You've heard us say that before. We have more data available for this project, which is a good thing. It provides challenges about how best to analyze it, integrate it, look at it, evaluate it. We're really spending more time on asset management, concerns, questions, approaches, and working with our partners at PennDOT and FHWA. We had a pre-meeting this morning to talk more about that approach, and I think those are good ways to coordinate. We think that having more data available and the way we're approaching it is giving us a better way to identify and select projects, especially on the discretionary side here, really what we're talking about. So some of the new tools or updated tools or new ways we're using them this time around, we think will help in that area. And the primary place that we're putting much emphasis on is through geographic information system analysis. Catherine Wild, our GIS manager, point person, is involved with a lot of this, as is Michael Baker, our consultant. What we'll be putting online as part of the website that I talked about to you earlier very shortly is GIS-enabled way of looking at the projects and associated data that touch back to the asset management expectations and monitoring, information that's current out there. But we hope that this will be something that grows into kind of a perpetual dashboard that allows us to update it even after this version of the LRTP is done. You know, as things continue to progress, that we can keep information updated and be able to especially monitor how we're doing on targets, performance management targets every year, compare that to state limits and what Federal Highways is talking about, and keep it going on a regular basis. So one of the goals coming out of the LRTP is that we plan to be able to not only maintain data better over time, but provide analysis tools to help everybody, including you as members and the general public, see how we're doing on our performance targets. So this is a continuing process, and a lot of this will be mostly the first step. This is an example of what we're working on for the front page of what we're calling the GIS Hub website. This will be accessible when you receive instructions about how to log on. It's part of the SEDA-COG overall website in the transportation section. There'll be things in there like the vision for the LRTP that we list there, but it will be the general public access tool. And as I've put the red box around here in the lower right, the survey will be included from here too. I'll get into details on that in just a second. So it should be easy to access. We're in the process still of testing it, but again, we want to try to put this up live in about another week for you to have a look at and find your way around. I think it'll be pretty intuitive in what it looks like and how it works. So there will be the public-facing GIS interface, but we're also going to have an internal sort of version of this tool for us to be able to do a few more things maybe that are a little bit more complex or more complicated. When you get into the website, over on the left side will be a menu list of different areas of data that you can have a look at. And there will be a pop-up box that will say evaluating corridors of concern. We're going to be calling those corridors of opportunity now, I think, from this point. That will provide more detail on what each one of those selections on the left is all about. So if you're interested in finding out, well, what do you mean by traffic congestion, or what am I looking at? What does resiliency mean? There will be information that we brought up, a pretty easy format to see, and exactly what explains exactly what you're looking at. So without showing this live right now, but running down what some of the interface will look like. The first and most important thing that's up here on the left side under projects is that the major asset management projects and the discretionary projects will be shown, that you can go in and hover over. Show you what an example of that looks like. Still under development a little bit, but you can click on any of those projects where they're located. Some of them are going to be linear. Some of them might just be dots, like if they're a bridge. It'll pop up the description of what that project is. You can leave that turned on, and you can turn on any of the other layers to show what it looks like for that particular type of data or types of data compared to where these projects are and what they look like. So in this example screen, this is for safety. The yellow lines and the yellow dots show fatal crash locations and high crash segments. So you can start to see what we're after here. On Interstate 80 going west from the Susquehanna, there's a asset management project, which is, I think, a repaving project. But if you want to start looking at how this fits together, you see, oh, there's some fatal crashes on there. There's I don't see a high crash segment there, but starting to put the information together in this way. The pavement and bridge conditions will show gray lines here as poor condition pavement. The dots are poor condition state and local bridges. Another way to see an example of, well, here's a proposed project, and it's relative to the where we find a poor condition bridge, for example, or not, where there's not a project that's proposed that way. The resiliency data, we've decided to highlight where there are historic examples of rockfall closures, or in this case too, there's high-risk flood segments that are shown. Repetitive situations like that, and if there is a project in that area, you're going to be able to find out about it and see what that is and what that's all about. Another way to, again, show some of the same information. It'll relate on other things. For freight, we'll be able to show areas, census blocks that have high freight employment. Those are the areas that are color coded there. There are also areas with high overweight, oversized permits. That is where the source area is. And areas with high mining activity, particularly quarry type information. That's a significant component and contributing factor to congestion, sometimes high truck traffic. So those things start to be pieced together where you can see them in one place again. This goes back, I wanted to throw one other figure in here because this is from our LRTP document. But this information on the current conditions in the online tool will tie back into the LRTP in some of the static maps that we'll be putting in there. So this is an example of the freight generators map that we have in there right now, the different kinds of employment data and where the freight generators are. So with both the LRTP document and then online tools, you're going to be able to track that a couple of different ways, and it will tie back together. This is the main thing that we're going to be spending a lot of time on here between now and the time the plan is adopted. When you start putting all of this together, what do things look like? There's a lot of colors, there's a lot of lines on this map. This is our main thrust, our main challenge of looking at all the information together, and are we really in the right place for having identified problem areas, corridors. We've called them corridors of concern, but we're going to be changing that term to probably corridors of opportunity from now on. And are there areas that are missing? And do we have a pretty good set of ways to address this? We've not really been able to do this kind of comparison and analysis to this point. This new tool, with the help of Michael Baker, is really coming together. Tying things together, I use that phrase a lot today here, but I think it's relevant, with asset management, monitoring of conditions. Are we meeting targets? Where are safety issues? Where are all these things coming together, and are we making the right decisions about what to recommend? So what I hope when this tool becomes active is that you'll spend some time in there and really try to do a lot of things with it. Look at specific areas maybe that you're familiar with. What do the data look like? Do you see projects being proposed there? Are we in the right place? This one, I just clicked on the CSVT Southern section, and you can see it pops up a year of the project, projected cost, but there's more data that underlies that as well. So our ability to look at this all in an integrated way, I think, has really improved this time. And having this as an online tool is not something that will go away after the LRTP is done, but we'll continue on a regular basis with. Any comments or questions on the GIS tool? Okay, well, you'll see more from us in the next week. We'll be sending something out to get you the ability to look in on this, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say about it. The last component of this I want to talk about is the public outreach survey and project input. A couple things before going into what the survey looks like. We have meetings in the process of being scheduled with a couple agencies, human service agencies and groups in February. On February 2nd, we'll be meeting with the prep partners that works through SEDA-COG to talk over their needs, their expectations, talk about potential projects. Are we aimed in the right place for what they need to do? And then we'll be working through a set of, I'll call them groups. We're not exactly sure who will be there or who will be represented yet, but we're coordinating this through the Greater Susquehanna Valley United Way. They have a basic needs task force. The meeting hasn't been scheduled with them yet, but it will be in February, and we're working on that right now. At that time, when the survey is open, we'll get information, we'll get feedback from them as well, particularly on the existing discretionary project lists. We don't want to encourage too much at this point in the way of recommending new projects back to us. We really want the feedback and information more on the current discretionary project list and what that looks like. With Michael Baker, we're working on the public outreach survey. I won't go down each one of these questions, but you'll get an idea of what the survey will look like. And again, this will be accessible through the main web interface that also includes the GIS tools. So typical questions that you might expect we'd want to ask. I think one thing that's of interest to us this time is it may give us a way to come up with some interesting information about how many people are still able to work at their regular place of employment and those who are working at home. Still a timely question maybe, and we know data from other places, but local data might be interesting to see there also. And some of these answers might change because of what's happened with COVID. For example, the number 9 question, do you use public transportation? We've got a starter list of these corridors of opportunity, and the plan right now is to ask respondents about those in the context of safety, congestion, resiliency, and freight are the main places for us to look. So there will be a starter list, more than likely, of these particular corridors that have been noted as the most relevant or areas of concern for safety. It'd be the same thing for congestion, resiliency, and freight. We might consider other corridors that are on the current starter list, but those will be provided to people as well. These project evaluation rating factors, we certainly want to have some feedback from respondents about what the impacts are. So right now, the plan is to have people rate importance 1 to 5, what they think on the corridors in terms of importance, or at least what is the most important to them for looking at a project or looking at a corridor. Another question will deal with funding. This is a chance for respondents to be able to rank in order of importance what kind of projects are the most important to them. There will also be a section, kind of a catch-all section about other questions. We may include something in there about the CSVT. There may be some specific or more detailed questions about safety improvement needs. You can see that right there in the different potential aspects for it. And the same thing for bicycle and pedestrian facilities. So these are the current working list of questions, topics, things to be asked in the survey. It's not finalized yet. We'll be having probably one more meeting with Michael Baker to put that in place, and then that'll be included in the survey when you get to see it coming up very soon. So to wind up here, I know that was a lot of information this morning. We also have, since we talked last time, I think we have the agency coordination meeting session scheduled for March 24th now. We've had a preliminary discussion with PennDOT folks about that, which was helpful. The date of the online survey site to open up to you that we're looking at right now is January 26th. We want to give you a few days to give us feedback about that, the steering committee and the members. This is kind of in place of a steering committee meeting this month, which we don't have scheduled. We'd rather have you concentrate on that. We think right now, in terms of timing, would be best spent. In February, the preliminary round of stakeholder input and public comment will be provided for basically a full 30-day comment period coming later, and the major input feedback stage, the final comment period on the plan document as well, will be in April and May. So that takes us through about the next 3 months. A lot to accomplish, but we're getting things in place, I think, quite well for it. With respect to time today on the meeting, since there's a pretty full agenda with things, we decided not really to do a full online demo for you, but if anybody would like to do that, let us know. We can set something up kind of to do that individually if you prefer to see that, and we can certainly accommodate that. But we have many things happening. I think they're going well. Good approaches on looking at a lot of important things for decision making right now. And we'll look forward in about another week or so to be giving you access and opening things up to look at what we're developing on our hub site. I'll stop there. I don't know if Jim has any further comments, but if any of you have questions or comments, please send that our way, and we'll be glad to try to respond.
I don't have any additional comments, Don. I guess there are no other questions about the long-range plan presentation. Believe it or not, we're within 2 or 3 minutes of being right on time. So what I'd propose at this point is if you want to do a 10-minute intermission, if everyone needs to just take a moment, step away from the screen, we'll pick back up in at about 10:40 and step right into item H on the agenda, the pavement bridge and system performance measures targets. And that discussion will be led by Mr. Herman. So let's give ourselves just a few minutes and we'll pick up. Again, I'm reading it at 10:29. So maybe come back in by 10:39, 10:40. Thank you, everyone. right, Steve, I wanted to give you a 10 or 15-second warning to spin you up and bring us back in on item H for the pavement and bridge and system performance measures targets.
Okay, thanks, Jim. We got T-minus 10 seconds here, I guess.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stop that because I cannot abide the noise that it makes when you hit 0. So
That's
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah. Save everybody from getting too alarmed. That's good.
there you go.
Good. Well, thanks, Jim. We're up here in our packet to page 57, if you're following along on either the printed or the electronic version. And this is with regard to the performance measures. If you recall, at the November meeting, the MPO members agreed to adopt PennDOT's revised performance measures for safety. So we had gone through that process and showed the data and background again on those federal regulations, and sent in the form letter to PennDOT, which showed evidence that the MPO agreed to program and plan projects that would help to make progress or attain the safety performance measures. So this time up at our January meeting, we have for consideration the system performance. So the letter that you see on page 57 gives more background on the pavement and bridges safety performance measures and targets, and also the system performance. These are known as PM2 and PM3, with the safety being the PM1. They were the first ones out with the regulations and guidance materials. So there are no adjustments for the pavement and bridges on the interstate system or the national highway system, but PennDOT did make some adjustments to the statewide 4-year system performance or PM3 targets. These cover the performance on the national highway system, freight movement on the interstate, and the congestion mitigation air quality improvement program for emissions reductions. As part of this process, our baseline report was in 2017, and so PennDOT went through and did a mid-performance period progress report, and that's spelled out there in the packet with that letter that's included for your review. And so that was submitted to the Federal Highway Administration on September 30th of 2020. And it reflects also the adjusted statewide system performance 4-year targets. There in the packet, the table 1 on page 59 shows the adjusted targets for the interstate reliability, interstate truck travel time index, and the CMAQ or congestion mitigation air quality improvement emissions, and the basis for adjusting these. On the interstate reliability side, the reason for the slight modification is primarily due to increased construction activity and work zone restrictions that would be occurring on the interstate. So that would affect interstate travel time reliabilities and for truck travel time indexes as well. And then on the CMAQ side, it was mostly due to some revisions in the Pittsburgh and Philadelphia areas, since there were some changes there that need to be reflected. And as far as those go, SEDA-COG is in attainment for air quality, the 8-county MPO region, so there's no contribution there from our region. Summary of the SEDA-COG MPO's interstate and national highway system reliability performance stats are on page 62 if you want to reference those at all of the packet. And per the federal regulations, there's a requirement that the MPOs must establish the targets no later than 180 days after PennDOT adjusts its statewide targets. So that puts us in needing to act on this by March 29th of this year of 2021, since PennDOT did its revisions in September of 2020. We as staff for the MPO would recommend that the members agree to support the adjusted statewide PM3 or system performance targets, and that would involve us planning and programming projects that contribute to meeting or making significant progress toward the established PennDOT performance targets. So we just wanted to bring this out for consideration, provide you the information and the status reports. You can kind of look at the baselines and the targets, what actually occurred, and then what the revised targets are based on some of those travel time reliability stats as we referenced. So if you want to bring out any discussion questions, more than happy to bring that out. And some of the PennDOT Central Office folks, you might be able to respond a little bit better than we could if you had questions about the progress reporting. And then also we would then look to entertain a vote to approve the revised statewide targets and for our process to continue to plan and program projects that either contribute to meeting or making significant progress on those. So any questions on the materials in your packet from pages 57 to 63? And if there are none, we would look to get a motion to agree to the revised PennDOT PM3 targets. And then afterward, we would follow up and submit the letter attesting to this and fulfill the federal planning requirements. So is there a motion to approve the PennDOT revised targets for system performance?
Carrie Mullins, I'll motion to accept.
Great, Carrie, thank you for the motion. Do we have a second?
This is Lincoln. I'll second it.
No, Lincoln just barely beat you, I think, there, Jack. So we'll give the second to Lincoln Kaufman. Thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Great. Any opposed? Same sign. Okay. Thank you all for your review of that. If you have questions afterward, feel free to let us know. If you want to see the full system performance bid progress report, we can share that. And as Don mentioned earlier, Dan Zakaris from the Michael Baker Consulting Team is available to us as part of the long range plan process. And he's really the go-to person for performance measures and helping PennDOT and the state really make progress here and hopefully satisfy all the requirements and become a leader in this area. So we can follow up with those folks if you have questions as well. But thank you for your time here today on that matter. And we'll follow up and get the letter off to PennDOT directly after this meeting. And that will bring us up, if there aren't questions, comments, to agenda item I. And Catherine Wild's going to take us through the local bridge prioritization process for the next tip update.
All right, thank you, Steve. Let me just get my screen set up here and then I'll get rolling. All right, can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Yep.
And this is also on page 65 in your packet if you do not have access to the video feed. I just wanted to do a quick run through of the 2023 TIP local bridge prioritization process. We wanted to provide this presentation to share some updates we've made and also inform our newer members that this will be their first round of what's to come. All right, so just a brief overview and reminder that the purpose of the process is to get a list together and send that over to PennDOT to help them make informed decisions on the TIP. You can see here a basic outline of the steps we'll follow. And I wanted to give an opportunity here to John or Vicki to share how this information helps them at their district. So John or Vicki, if either of you have any comments, please feel free to share when you're ready.
Okay, I guess I'll start. If you, we use this list that we compile, every year it seems we get a little bit better at doing this as the years go by. I know we had a little bit glitch, with this last time, with the last update, but the meetings and the overall list are a big factor on how, at least in District 3, we determine how we utilize our local bridge funds. So, these, I can't stress the importance of these. The meetings do help a lot for us because we get on the same page and know what the counties are thinking as far as their concerns on the local bridges, in their area and what they're looking at. Because it changes every year, it seems. And for us to have these meetings and then get an overall list is a big help, especially to keep updated on the continual concerns each county has.
Hi, this is Vicki. As far as District 2, we've had a couple meetings already with each of the county planners. We take a little bit of a different approach as far as the retro program for those bridges that are smaller and that can get those types of projects done quickly. We put a line item up on that. So it's very crucial that for those that we have each planner very much involved with the townships and boroughs, and that we know what their priorities are, then working through SEDA-COG, what is the regional priority of those. And it's basically the first come, first serve, which meaning that if the other townships or borough can actually get their permits well in line, get their consultant, get their contractor, then we will reimburse them up to 80%. On the other flip side, with the BAMs that you've heard a lot about with the bridge asset management system, we're looking at the local bridges also, because those are the ones that are the bigger bridge. Actually, we have one in Clinton County, the MPO Avenue Bridge, that's ongoing, and that's approximately $2 million. So the retro program can handle that. And so that we need to have an analysis of what's going on with the local bigger bridges and what are redundant bridges, which ones, are not being used as much, but which ones are more critical for each county planner, and then regionally, as far as economic development, what's going on in that area. So as Jonathan said, it changes from tip to tip. And I think you're gonna see, we're gonna look at the way the 23 tip, the financial guidance is gonna go. And, the goal is to at least get one or two of those local bridges on that are bigger to help the SEDA-COG area. So we'll be looking at those very heavily, because it's right in the prime that we're going to start looking at the 23 tip and how these bridge funds for what they're referring to the BAMs and the PAMs, how we break out that money and how it's going to be reallocated to a certain extent.
Great. Thank you both for sharing that and some good information there. I hope that helps some of the newer members and even the returning members have a better idea of where everything goes once we finish it off. So continuing on, we do have the project timeline here. Just a few key things to note. In order for us to make some of our updates we've come up with and also still get the information over to PennDOT in a timely fashion, we have condensed the time frame slightly to hold the meetings with each of the counties. You can see here it's just falling from February to April. Previously, they were held anywhere from March to July, I believe. So we are going to start holding those next month. Please keep an eye out for an email from us. Our goal is to have time to do some quality checking, which you can see down here, and also have it approved at the September MPO meeting for submission. A new feature for this round of the process that we'll be rolling out is an online map. Our goal is to have this map available at the county meetings initially to make sure we limit any confusion on bridge locations and IDs and allow everyone to see exactly what bridge the others are talking about. This map will be live by the end of the month, and the link will be provided to you in the county meeting invitations. My goal is to update the map after each of the meetings, and it'll show the prioritized bridges, and it'll stay active throughout the whole process so that you can always check in whenever it's convenient for you and see how things are going for you. As has been mentioned, we do offer county meetings as part of this process, just to get an idea of priorities and needs for each of the counties. I mostly just wanted to include this to give our newer members an idea of who some of the other counties invite to the table. Usually it's at minimum the county, SEDA-COG, and PennDOT, but you can see here there's a variety of other members at the table depending on your specific needs. The next topic is quality checks. For this round, we are implementing a 3-part quality check. As you can see here, it'll involve us as staff, PennDOT, and yourselves through the survey input and any comments that come through from the meetings and mapping application. We are returning to using the Decision Lens platform, which is a software specifically made to perform these types of tasks. So that will allow for some additional quality checking just within that in itself. Just wrapping up here, I did want to point out that after the slides, the PowerPoint slides in your packet, there are a few additional pages that show you what bridges have gone through this process in the past few rounds. And we did want to open the floor up to all of you and hear if there's any way we can make it more worthwhile for you, or if you need additional information on the process or any other comments or questions. So does anybody have anything they would like to share?
Yeah, this is Carrie Mullins, Program Center. Catherine, can we see if we could maybe get Scott Williams from Williamsport MPO? Not as anything that he would vote on anything, but I'd just like him to be a part of this if possible, just so he can listen, because we're thinking about doing these kind of things in Williamsport MPO and Northern Tier MPO, and Jim knows a little bit about that. So we can talk offline, but maybe we could just include him on some of the emails.
Sure, certainly. I'll make a note of that.
Thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, just another friendly reminder, we will be sending emails out by the end of January here, so stay tuned for that and do keep an eye for those emails to come through. Thank you, and I believe that takes us into the next agenda item, as long as I can figure out how to stop sharing this screen. All right. Next is agenda item J, which is the Active Transportation Committee update. Just some quick things here. I did include a handout. It is page 76 if you would like to reference any of the dates after the meeting. We are having a funding workshop panel at our next committee meeting, which is February 24th. Some of the panelists will include some members from PennDOT, DCNR, SEDA-COG, and more. It'll focus on active transportation grant opportunities, and they are going to specifically share common issues they see with grant applications, and also things that can be very positive things to include on your grant application. So if you would like to join that and listen in for that meeting, please let me know and I'll be happy to send the link over to you. I also included the upcoming meeting schedule for some of the work groups, and just another friendly reminder of the decals and stickers that are still available if you would like any for your organization. So I believe that wraps up, unless anybody has any questions on the active transportation information. All right, can continue on to agenda item K.
All right, for the member forum, we have our usual document at the end of the packet. There are a couple of items that we wanted to call out for special attention. First off, there's a link to the projects that were announced as funded through part of the last Arley round. So congratulations, I believe the town of Bloomsburg was included on that list for a signals project. I don't think there are any other projects in our planning region that received funding, but we love to see those going through. Another item we wanted to just touch on is we weren't able to pull together enough information to provide a calendar on this, but we do expect several public outreach efforts from PennDOT over the coming months. So that includes the biannual STC outreach as part of the 12-year plan update. That's likely to start in March. We talked a little bit about the PennDOT Pathways program, looking at alternative funding methods. In particular, they were talking about the opportunity to implement tolls at specific bridges. We expect another round of public comment opportunities to come out for that in the coming months. And I guess I'd call out, just as kind of a background, that we are starting to see the work groups for the next TIP update starting. So the general procedures and guidance work group, the financial guidance work group are getting underway, and it's just starting the machinery rolling for that next update process. It's a 2-year cycle, and we got our 4 or 5 months off, but it's going to be right back to it to make sure we're ready for the next tip adoption. Another item we wanted to touch on is that it's come to our attention that after 34 years of service, Vicki Rusnak is planning to retire, and with the effective date for that coming up in February, this is likely to be her last meeting with us. That's especially tough for us because when we look at the map, Vicki has personally been involved in financing the road and bridge projects shown there. She's the last active member of the MPO who was involved in the original development of the federal functional classification system as we now see it for the region. So when we talk about the lines that are drawn on the map for our region, she's had a personal hand in where they end up and seeing that the projects that put them there were completed. Myself and several of the other staff credit her with just helping us learn the ropes, taking years off our learning curves. And I know we hear similar things from the other organizations and planning partners that Vicki works with. It's not often that you get the chance to thank the people who have impacted your careers. And I just want to make sure that we took the chance to do so today and note how thoroughly we will miss Vicki's innovative and inclusive approach. We're excited for where you're going, but we're certainly not happy to see you go. So I don't know, Carrie or Matt, or if there's anyone else who'd want to throw in a couple of comments on that, or Vicki, if you'd like to say something yourself.
Yeah, Jim. But it's very touching, and I thank you all. I actually will have 35 years in February, when 19th, when I do retire. But I just want to personally thank each and every one of you that I've worked with. You've been fantastic. You're like my second family, and that's what makes it a bittersweet decision. But there is, life after PennDOT. And it's just been overwhelming, and just really to know that, the MPO is going to continue on. There's going to be a replacement. And Jim, you've been terrific to work with, as all my other county planners. But it has been a great ride. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank each and every one of you for, everything and anything that we were able to strive and make our district and our MPO better.
This is Steve, Jim. I'll just kind of tack on, echo some of your sentiments, and just express our appreciation for you, Vicki, as a person, obviously professionally as well, with how you've guided us throughout the years and given us great instruction and guidance and wisdom, being the real financial wizard that you are, with how you manage the dollars in an effective and efficient fashion. And it's just been a real bonus to us to be able to work with you over the years and get to know you so well. And we wish you all the best in retirement. It's a sad day for us, but we know it's extremely happy for you, and look forward to you doing other ventures and enjoying the outings and activities you want to do as you retire.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Hey, Vicki, this is Carrie. I know we talk a lot on the phone, but I just wanted to thank you again for being, helping all the time whenever I needed something over the last 8 years at SEDA-COG, really helping me out and being, just a great person to work with. And it was tough with having two districts, District 2 and District 3, and we were always able to work together on that, and you were a big part of that for our funding splits and whatnot. So just thanks for everything you did for the MPO, and thanks personally what you've done to me helping out when I needed it.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you.
Vicki, you have been the rose between two thorns with Carrie and Jonathan. You're going to be missed. It's been a pleasure to know you and to serve with you in this group. Happy hunting.
Thank you very much. I actually have a moose hunting up in Canada in September 21, so I'm hoping the borders open up.
Well, we'll be in Newfoundland right after you.
Oh, cool. We'll have to share stories then.
There you go. Stay in touch.
Absolutely.
Hey, Vicki, this is Matt Smoker with Federal Highways. And I just want to echo everyone's opinions and thought. It's been a great ride working with you. It's been 20 plus years, I think, for me and you working together through all the planning partners, both in statewide activities. Yeah, you're a tremendous asset to the districts and to the MPOs and RPOs you work with, but also statewide. I know you're highly recognized statewide for your knowledge and expertise and all the wisdom and magic that you do. Everyone refers to, Vicki being the magic with working the fiscal constraint charts and being able to collaborate with the districts and get information back to relevant parties in a quick matter of time. So I know you enhanced my career, and I have some really great memories working together with tip development or going out on field reviews, safety reviews. Just wish you all the best of luck moving forward. And if there is a magic wand that you use, just let me know who you pass that on to.
Will do, Matt. Will do. And thank you for the kind comments. That really means a lot. I thank you.
I guess being the other thorn here, Vicki,
yeah, there you are.
It's been great. It's been great working with you. It seems like the whole time I've been here, I've been working with you since my transfer from District 8 to District 3. I think it's been great. We've gone through some crazy times, especially considering recessions, floods, and pandemics that's been in front of us, and it's just been great working with you to get through all this and the attitude that you've had. And I also appreciate when central office needs a talking to here and there, you're one of the ones who steps up and sounds off. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. And that's the one torch that I will definitely pass to the new person is that, we have to work together with the RPO and the district because, you want to put your best foot forward and do what's right for the whole region. So I thank you very much, Jonathan. It's been fantastic working with you. We've always been able, like Carrie said, and Matt, when we had issues, we were all able to work together and, and then we were able to talk to central office and have that conversation too.
It's Kristen Mulcairn, and I just wanted to take a moment. I work in central office. I kind of moved into a role pre-pandemic, so I haven't gotten to meet most of you face to face, but I've had the pleasure of working with Vicki almost my entire career at PennDOT, and she's been an absolute resource to helping me grow my knowledge and information, and is always an advocate for her district and her areas, and I've appreciated that in my previous roles and current role. I know she's helped a lot, not only on the local side, but statewide as well. So definitely will be big shoes to fill.
Thank you, Kristen. And it has been such a long ride with you and a pleasure. We've been through a lot, as you said, and we were always able to come out on top. And a lot of that is respect with you. And I thank you. And I will miss you also. We're going to keep in touch.
All right, so we did want to take a moment and acknowledge that and say thank you. This is the last agenda item, and before we wrap up the meeting, I just wanted to make sure that we open the floor up to our county members and our other appointed members and guests and give you the opportunity to provide any quick updates or organizational updates that are appropriate. So this is an open floor item. Please step forward if you've got something to share.
I got one thing to share. Jim, this is John Reich. For those of you who don't know, Kerry Mullins slipped off this week to Las Vegas with his girl and came back with a wife. So Well, we have a kind of a sad thing with Vicky leaving, but I want to leave on a happy note to let you all know that Carrie Mullins is no longer available anymore. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, we'll express our congratulations to you and our condolences to your wife.
Congrats, Carrie. Woohoo!
Well, thank you.
Hey, Jim, it's Lisa Dooley with the town of Bloomsburg.
Mhm.
I just wanted to provide an update with East Street, the project taking off here in Bloomsburg. We have a public session coming up in February 16th at 5 p.m. So that is going to be open to the public, and we'll have construction starting here in 2021 and 2022 for the town.
Outstanding. Happy to hear it moving forward. Anything else for the good of the order, or anything else that members would like to share? All right.
Steve, Jim, I'll just put another plug in quickly for the multimodal fund project comments. If folks have any additional ideas or recommendations there, if they could get those to us by the 28th. I know some of the PennDOT district staff are still meeting and compiling their comments, so we can incorporate and reflect those as we receive those. But any members, I know several of you were either tied to developing projects or you were consulted on as reviewers at a county planner level to make sure they were consistent with your county comprehensive plans or other plans that are being developed in your area. So if there's anything additional, please get those comments to us by January 28th, and we'll finalize and get those sent in through the PennDOT system and make sure they're reflected. Thank you.
And then along that line, we'll say look for the email from Dawn and Catherine opening up the public outreach website for comments next week, and look for the poll from Catherine to set meeting times for the local bridge priorities coming along next week as well. All right, then if there's nothing else, we're going to adjourn the meeting at 11:12, about 20 minutes ahead of time. Thank you all for your participation, and please feel free to follow up with us on questions or anything related to the items covered here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye.